Okay, imagine a tsunami, right? This huge, destructive wave. Now picture that wave, but instead of water, it's molasses. Thick, sticky, sweet molasses. Sounds completely unreal, I know. But it actually happened. January 15th, 1919, Boston's North End. A truly enormous storage tank holding something like 2.3 million gallons of molasses. That's about 13,000 tons. It just burst.
Burst wide open.
And the result was instant chaos, a wave of this stuff, this syrup tearing through the streets. They estimated it hit 35 miles per hour.
Incredible speed for something that viscous.
And the toll was devastating. 21 people died, 150 injured. So in this deep dive, we really want to unpack this bizarre event, go beyond just the strange story, look at the causes, the real impact it had, which is surprisingly significant.
Absolutely. It's much more than just a weird historical footnote.
Right. So let's get into it. January 15th, 1919. You mentioned the weather was a bit strange that day.
It was, yeah. After a really cold spell, the temperature jumped up quite a bit, above 40 degrees Fahrenheit. And just the day before, they topped off the tank. A fresh shipment of molasses had arrived.
Okay.
And crucially, they'd warmed that new molasses up to make it flow easier into the tank.
So you've got temperature changes, a full tank. What happened at the moment it actually burst?
Well, witnesses described just chaos, feeling the ground shake, and this incredible noise, a roar.
A roar.
Yeah, some said it sounded like an elevated train going right past them, which is ironic given what happened next. Others described it as a huge crash, a deep growl. Someone even said a thunderclap like bang.
Wow.
And maybe the most chilling sound, like a machine gun. That was apparently the rivets popping out of the tank walls under the pressure.
Rivets firing off like bullets. Unbelievable. The power involved must have been immense.
It's hard to even wrap your head around. And, you know, the key is molasses itself. We think of water being heavy, right? Molasses is about 40% denser.
40%.
Yeah, 1.4 metric tons per cubic meter. So when you have that much weight, 13,000 tons of it stored high up in a tank, the potential energy is just enormous.
So when it failed,
It was like an explosion of stored energy. All that potential instantly became kinetic. A wave. Reports said it peaked at maybe 25 feet high, and like you said, moving at 35 miles per hour.
a 25-foot wave of molasses.
Yeah, and the destruction. It was immediate. The force literally ripped steel panels off the tank and slammed them against the girders of the nearby elevated train track.
The L-train structure.
Exactly. It even knocks a streetcar off its tracks for a moment.
No way.
Yeah, and buildings nearby. Swept clean off their foundations. Crushed. Several blocks ended up flooded, like 2 or 3 feet deep in this stuff.
Like just wading through molasses.
And maybe the craziest detail, it picked up a truck and threw it into Boston Harbor.
Through a truck. That's incredible force.
It really is.
It's hard to imagine the human side of this amidst such sticky destruction. There was a report, wasn't there, from the Boston Post?
Yes, and it's quite graphic. It paints a truly awful picture. It said, molasses waist deep covered the street and swirled and bubbled about the wreckage.
Oh, man.
Here and there struggle to form. Whether it was animal or human being was impossible to tell. Only an upheaval, a thrashing about in the sticky mass, showed where any life was.
That's horrifying.
Gets worse. Horses died like so many flies on sticky flypaper. The more they struggled, the deeper the mess they were ensnared. Human beings, men and women, suffered likewise.
Just trapped. Like quicksand, but sweet and deadly.
Exactly. And that trapping effect relates directly to the physics of molasses. It's fascinating in a grim way. Molasses is what scientists call a non-Newtonian fluid.
Okay, what does that mean, practically?
It means its viscosity, its thickness isn't constant like water. It changes depending on the stress applied to it. Think about ketchup in a bottle.
Right, hard to get out sometimes.
Until you shake it or hit the bottom, apply stress, then it flows more easily. It's called shear thinning. For the molasses, the stress was the tank bursting. That sudden release allowed it to flow incredibly fast initially.
Hence the 35 miles per hour.
Precisely. But here's the cool twist. Scientific American put it well, saying, a wave of molasses is even more devastating than a typical tsunami. Because after that initial fast surge that knocked everything down...
It changes.
Yes. As the pressure dropped, and especially as it cooled in the January air, it thickened up rapidly, became almost gelatinous. So it hit hard and fast, then turned into this incredibly effective trap.
That's the double threat you mentioned. First the impact, then the suffocation and entrapment.
Exactly, making rescue efforts just nightmarishly difficult.
There's that one story about the little boy, Anthony DeStasio.
Yeah, it's incredibly poignant. He was just walking home from school. The wave apparently picked him up, and the account says he was tumbling on its crest, almost as though he were surfing.
Surfing on molasses.
Then it threw him down, rolled him like a pebble. He heard his mother calling him, but couldn't answer.
Why not?
His throat was completely clogged with the molasses. He actually passed out.
Oh my God. Did he?
He survived, miraculously. He woke up later, and his sisters were there. But imagine.
Just terrifying. A miracle he made it. So after the initial shock, who were the first people trying to help?
The very first on the scene, remarkably, were 116 cadets from the USS Nantucket, a training ship docked nearby.
Cadets.
Yep. They heard the crash, saw the chaos, and just ran several blocks towards it. And they didn't hesitate, waded right into the molasses, which was knee-deep in places, pulling people out.
Incredible bravery.
Absolutely. Then soon after, Boston police arrived. The Red Cross, Army, Navy personnel, a major response got underway.
But you said rescuing people was incredibly difficult.
Immensely. I mean, Red Cross nurses were literally diving into the muck to reach victims. Others were setting up aid stations, feeding workers. But just moving through that thick, sticky syrup was exhausting and dangerous.
And finding the victims.
Very difficult. Many were so coated in molasses they were hard to even recognize. The search went on for 4 days.
4 days searching in that mess.
And tragically, some people were just swept away completely into the harbor.
Yeah.
Their bodies weren't found for months.
Just awful. And then the cleanup. I can't even begin to imagine.
A colossal task.
Yeah.
Sticky doesn't even begin to cover it. They actually brought in a fireboat and used saltwater cannons to try to wash the molasses away.
Salt water. Did that work?
It helped, but they also had to bring in tons of sand to try and absorb it. Even so, the harbor stayed brown with molasses until the summer.
Until summer. Wow.
Cleaning the streets, the buildings, the immediate area. That was weeks. Hundreds of people working nonstop.
But it spread further than that, didn't it?
Oh, absolutely.
Yeah.
This is the part that really stuck literally in Boston's memory. Everyone involved, rescuers, cleanup crews, even just people who came to look, tracked it everywhere.
Everywhere.
Subway platforms, inside the trains, on streetcar seats, payphones. People tracked it into their homes all over the city. There's that famous quote, "Everything that a Bostonian touched was sticky."
I believe it. So this whole disaster, it sounds like a freak event, but you said earlier it was more than that. This wasn't just bad luck.
Not at all. And this is where the story shifts from just bizarre tragedy to a really important lesson about corporate responsibility. This was preventable. It was a direct result of, frankly, shocking negligence by the Purity Distilling Company.
Which was owned by a larger company.
Right. United States Industrial Alcohol Company, or USIA. And the flaws in that tank were staggering. For starters, it leaked from day one, built in 1915, leaking immediately.
Leaked. How badly?
So badly that the company's solution was to paint the tank brown.
To hide the leak. Seriously.
Seriously, apparently local residents knew it leaked and would actually go collect the dripping molasses in cans. Free sweetener.
That's... wow. Okay, so it leaked. What else was wrong?
The design itself was flawed. The steel walls were only about half as thick as they should have been, even for 1915 standards.
Half as thick.
Yeah. And the type of steel used lacked manganese, making it more brittle, especially in the cold. The rivets, the things that popped like machine guns, they were also known to be flawed. Cracks started forming around the rivet holes early on.
So fundamentally unsound construction. Who oversaw this? Surely engineers were involved.
That's the unbelievable part. The guy overseeing construction was USIA's treasurer, Arthur Gell.
The treasurer. Not an engineer.
No architectural or engineering experience whatsoever. And he cut corners. Basic safety tests, like filling the tank fully with water first to check for leaks under pressure, never done properly.
They just filled it with molasses and hoped for the best.
Pretty much. And they ignored clear warning signs. People reported hearing groaning sounds from the tank every time it was filled near capacity.
Groaning sounds, and they just kept filling it.
Yep. To make matters worse, they didn't even have the proper building permits. No licensed engineers or architects ever signed off on the plans or construction.
So this wasn't just one mistake. It was a whole pattern of cutting corners, ignoring warnings, lack of expertise.
A cascade of failures, exactly. Driven by negligence at the corporate level, it really shows the lack of regulation or oversight common in that era.
And those environmental factors we talked about, the temperature change, the fresh, warm molasses, they just pushed this already failing structure over the edge.
Precisely. The tank had only been filled to capacity, putting maximum stress on those weak walls about 8 times since it was built. So you had cyclical stress, then the thermal expansion from the warming weather, possibly increased pressure from fermentation inside.
Fermentation, molasses ferments.
It can, yeah. Producing carbon dioxide, increasing internal pressure. It was basically a perfect storm hitting a fundamentally flawed, neglected structure.
There was also some talk, wasn't there, about prohibition playing a role?
There's speculation, yeah. The 18th Amendment, establishing prohibition, was ratified literally the next day, January 16th, 1919.
Wow, the timing.
Right. So the theory goes that maybe purity distilling was rushing, maybe overfilling the tank, trying to produce as much industrial alcohol, which was a key used for molasses, before the ban took effect a year later.
Trying to beat the clock and taking huge risks.
It's plausible it contributed to the decision-making or lack thereof.
And when the inevitable happened, how did USIA react? Did they own up to it?
Not initially, no. Their first move was actually pretty outrageous. They tried to blame it on anarchists.
Anarchists, seriously.
Yeah, they claimed the tank must have been blown up, maybe because some of the alcohol produced was used in manufacturing munitions for World War I. A bombing plot.
Trying to deflect blame completely. Did anyone buy that?
Well, it created confusion, but the truth came out. A thorough investigation was launched, led by a court-appointed auditor. It took 3 years, extensive hearings, testimony. But the conclusion was clear. USIA was solely responsible. Structural failure. No evidence of sabotage whatsoever.
So the negligence was officially confirmed. What happened then? Did the victims and their families get any justice?
They did, eventually. And what happened next was actually groundbreaking. 119 residents banded together and filed a class action lawsuit against USIA.
A class action suit back then? Was that common?
Not at all. This was one of the very first major class action suits in Massachusetts, possibly even U.S. history. It set a precedent.
And how did that turn out?
It was a long fight, 6 years of litigation. But ultimately, USIA was found liable. They were ordered to pay out $628,000 in damages.
How much is that today?
Adjusted for inflation, that's around $11.4 million in 2024 money. Reports suggest the families of those who died received about $7,000 per victim.
Which would be about $127,000 today. Significant, but still.
Right. No amount can truly compensate for the loss, but the legal outcome was hugely significant beyond the money. This case became a landmark. It's seen as a crucial step towards modern corporate regulation and accountability. It directly led to changes in building codes and safety laws in Massachusetts and influenced practices across the country.
Like what kind of changes?
Requirements for licensed architects and civil engineers to actually review and approve construction plans for structures like this. Proper inspections, real oversight. It helped establish the idea that companies couldn't just build whatever they wanted without professional accountability, especially when public safety was at risk.
So this bizarre flood actually helped make future buildings safer.
Absolutely. There's a direct line from this tragedy to the safety standards we often take for granted today.
And does the event still echo in Boston today? What's at the site now?
It does. The site where the tank stood is now a public park, Langone Park. It has recreational facilities, a Little League baseball field.
A baseball field, right where the tank was.
Pretty much. There's a small plaque there commemorating the flood and the victims.
And that story about the smell, did it really linger?
Apparently so. For decades after 1919, especially on hot summer days, residents claimed they could still smell a faint, sweet scent of molasses in the North End.
Decades later, that's amazing.
Yeah, one journalist wrote something like, "The smell of molasses remained for decades, a distinctive, unmistakable atmosphere of Boston."
It really became part of the city's sensory landscape.
In a way, yeah. And it pops up in popular culture, too, now and then.
Oh, yeah.
Bands have written songs about it, like The Darkest of the Hillside Thickets and Protest the Hero. Comedian Io Itabiri, who's from Boston, has talked about it. There's been a puppet show, even a card game announced recently.
So it hasn't been forgotten.
No. And on the 100th anniversary, January 15, 2019, they held a ceremony at the park. They actually used ground-penetrating radar to pinpoint the exact location of the original tank's concrete base.
Is it still there?
Yep, about 20 inches under the baseball diamond. They read out the names of all 21 victims. A very solemn remembrance.
So wrapping this up, the Great Molasses Flood, it really stands out, doesn't it? A uniquely strange, tragic event.
Definitely unique, that image of a wave of molasses. But fundamentally, it's a story about corporate greed and failure.
A failure that cost 21 lives and injured so many more. A powerful reminder that disasters aren't always natural.
Exactly. They can be human-made, rooted in negligence, in cutting corners, in prioritizing profit over safety.
So perhaps the final thought for you listening is something stemming from that.
Yeah, it really raises an important question, doesn't it? How often do we just implicitly trust that the buildings, the bridges, the infrastructure around us is safe? And what lessons can we still draw from something as seemingly bizarre as a molasses flood nearly a century ago about that constant need for vigilance, for proper oversight, and for real accountability in our complex modern world?